Hello, all. Welcome back to Resilience Plus Rise, the podcast. Here we're coming to part two of my conversation with Bruce Simpson. In our last episode, we heard Bruce talking about the steps he wanted to finish off his life, but he did not realize at that point of time what he was going through was a mental illness. We came to the point wherein his friend left him and he wants to take the next decision. He paused, thinking about his friend, but he said, 30 years, that has been his plan. And that's been his action to do list. If he had not reached a point of his own validation. So, Bruce, welcome back to Resilience Plus Rise.
Thank you, Thomas.
What happens after that?
Well, I was determined to end my life. There was no doubt about it. The gun was in my hand, fingers on the trigger, and then I had this all-encompassing sense of just warmth, peace, calm washed over me, enveloped my entire body like nothing I'd ever experienced before. Totally surreal. And at the same time, inside of my head, I hear a very comforting message say, Bruce, you're not going to kill yourself. You're going to be okay. And you're going to be equipped to handle the aftermath of your suicide attempt. You're going to be fine. And I was just, given everything that had happened, over the last 3 hours, I couldn't begin to process, the gun not firing. I just test fired it, brand new gun, hammer hits a bullet, the bullet doesn't fire. And then I hear this thing in the detention basin where I was to kill myself. But all the anxiety that had consumed me for the previous 36 hours to the point that I was ready to die without question, determined. I mean, I know me, I know my determination. When I'm determined to do something, get out of my way, it's going to happen. And it didn't, despite my best efforts and most purposeful attention. I mean, honestly, no one could have tried harder to kill themselves than me. But I was alive, and then all of a sudden, all that anxiety was gone. And I was at peace. Why? I don't know. I mean, I was just totally confused. But I wasn't suicidal. And I went to a commercial dumpster behind the shopping center where I was, that close to this detention basin, and emptied the bullets out of the revolver in the dumpster, and then started walking home. Got home, the police put me up against the wall, patted me down for weapons, put me in handcuffs in front of my family, took me outside in front of my family and the neighbors, put me in the back of a police car, and took me to Eastern State Hospital, which is the oldest continuing operating state psychiatric hospital in the United States, located in Lexington, Kentucky, Eastern State Hospital. Got there about midnight. They put me in an unlocked room, checked on me every 15 minutes. They had to unlock the bathroom for me to use it. They had to be in the shower when I took a shower. I met my first mental health professional while I was in there, Dr. Donald Crow. Spent a lot of time with me about the 4 days I was there. Started talking about a lot of things I'd never talked about before. Started me on medication. I got released. I went and met with my clients that I had malpracticed that case, apologized to them, gave them the statute of limitations to file suit against me. Then I went to the Kentucky Bar Association that regulates lawyer conduct, told them what I'd done, and then I got fired from my law firm. It was end of January 2023. I was 73 years old. I had a whole lot of debt, no job, just gotten fired, and just got out of a mental institution for killing myself. But honestly, what happened that night To me, particularly what I heard, and that my sense that I was going to be okay and equipped to handle the aftermath of my suicide. I mean, I didn't know what any of that meant, but I was not afraid of my uncertain future, which is totally different than I'd ever been. Um, I tell folks now that the Bruce Simpson that existed prior to my suicide attempt on January 25th of 2023, that Bruce Simpson would have covered this whole affair up. I would never have gone public with it. And if asked, I would have denied it ever happened. I would have lied about it. There would be no reason for me to talk publicly because I still, number one, like practicing law and needed money to pay bills and live. Um, One of the escape mechanisms from my long-term battle with untreated depression was gambling. I could go and gamble all the money I made and be treated better than I deserved in Vegas and other casinos. And for moments, I would be good enough, at least in their eyes, and I would have nothing but, self-deception. I've made it. I'm good enough. I'm worthy. All the while, sometimes I'd win, but more times than not, I'd lose and accumulate a lot of debt because of all of that. Um, the old Bruce Simpson would have never talked about this. I wouldn't be talking to you, honestly, right now. But I tell people, look, I have no agenda in talking about it now. I don't charge to speak with suicidal people, which I do frequently. I don't charge for any public speaking engagements. I honestly, before January 25th of 2023, I doubted God even existed. I was the quintessential doubting Thomas. I just, the televangelists that were hawking money out of poor people to live in multi-million-dollar houses, fly around in jets, smacking people on the head and act like they cured them from being disabled or handicapped. I just thought there's too much con game going on. And I didn't buy it. And I'd had state and federal judges tell me for 40 years, Mr. Simpson, I want the cold hard facts of why your client's entitled to relief in my court. Facts that can be admitted pursuant to the federal or state rules of evidence. If I couldn't prove it in court by evidence upon which a jury could make a decision, credible, it didn't exist. I could never prove the existence of God in a courtroom. I couldn't even authenticate the Bible for the truth of the matter that it asserted in a courtroom because of hearsay, translation issues, and the like. And so that was my thinking. If I couldn't prove it in court, it was a fiction. Now, I had all the proof that I needed that night to know that God is real. And as much as mental health treatment has helped me since January 25th of 2023, which has helped me a lot, my evolving faith in the Lord has helped me even more to be a much different person. I no longer am dependent upon being validated by anybody. I don't need recognition. I try to shy away from it because I know that's a trap for me. So I don't need that reward. Don't get me wrong. Everybody likes to be complimented, okay, and me included. But my whole existence isn't dependent upon someone thinking I'm worthy. I don't need it. I don't even have to worry about meeting my own expectations, which I was a pretty harsh critic and would self-sabotage myself all the time, beat myself up. I don't worry about meeting my expectations. I worry about, which I pray every morning to the Lord, Lord, help me to understand what it is your will is for me to do this day, and help me to understand it and help me to do it. Help me to do your will and not mine. And I go about with that mission, and I still take care of my clients. I've always been conscientious about that. I've got backup systems now for my memory issues, person that checks everything I do, that monitors all my appointments, all my deadlines. I'm practicing by myself since I got fired from my law firm. And I'm shocked, honestly, people still call me to be their lawyer. which I'm grateful for because I love representing them, love helping them. The more challenging the case, the better. But the other mission I have is I know what misery is like. I know what mental torment is like. I know what the point of no return is like. And I don't want anyone that I can influence.
Wow.
I don't want anyone that I can influence to get to that point that I did. I want to have at least 15 minutes to talk to them, to tell them they can be helped. Some people need more help than others.
That's
It
true.
may take a while, but you can be helped. I never thought I could be. I never thought a mental health person could talk me out of feeling so unworthy as I believed I was from the time I was 10 years old. I just didn't buy into that. How's somebody going to talk me out of feeling the way I felt? I just didn't buy it. And I was afraid that someone might recognize me, even going within 100 yards of a mental health professional, for fear people may say, well, what's up with Simpson? He's, going to see a shrink or something. I didn't want the label. I didn't want anything to do with it. I made fun of people with mental illness, like all my friends. I made fun of the very hospital I was confined in involuntarily. I would just project, my feelings about mental illness away from myself, even though I knew I needed help, but I was afraid to get it and did not want to accept the label that I had a mental health problem. And I suffered almost 3/4 of a century because of that fear of the stigma of being thought of less than worthy, of not being respected, of being made fun of, which still exists today. It has for thousands of years. And it kills a lot of people. That stigma kills a lot of people who are afraid to get help, who feel unworthy and just languish silently in their misery. And to whatever extent, me as one person, I don't have any delusions of grandeur. For me, when I speak to groups or anybody, my goal really is connect with one person. I know that 5% on the average, statistically, 5% of the people I speak with have considered suicide at some point seriously. Close to 20% have had a serious depressive episode at some point in their life. I just want to reach one. And so I put my number out there, my email, my telephone number is 859-229-3436, 859-229-3436. My email is bruce@bsimpsonlaw.com, bruce@bsimpsonlaw.com. I don't charge. I can't cure you. I can't fix you. I've been to a place, the darkest, most forbidding place that I know to exist. I don't want you going there. I've been there. By the grace of God, I'm here today, only by the grace of God, functioning better than ever as a human being and as a lawyer than I ever have, with my evolving faith in the Lord and mental health treatment, both of them. And so I don't want anybody go. I mean, it is a hellish existence. I know what it's like, and whatever I can do to talk to somebody, give them encouragement, give them referrals to people that I know that can help them. And I know when you get to that point where you're comfortable with executing your plan, that's the last. I mean, that's a difficult place to pull back from. No one could have talked me out of death or my plan. People were trying. I saw them all. I saw my wife calling. My daughters were calling me. My brother, one of my law partners at the time was calling. I was beyond being helped. There was no way anybody could stop me from what I was going to do. But I got stopped. And I don't know why I'm still here, but I am. I don't want anybody to suffer like I did. So whatever I can do as a human being, I tell folks, I'm just a human being. I don't have any special skills or talents to give you anything that's going to change the way you think. but I can tell you can be helped, and I can talk to you. Real world. One thing I've learned when you're dealing with suicidal people, you better be 100% truthful and authentic. No bullshit. You better be straight up. And I want to be in those conversations. You got to keep people talking when they're at the point of pulling that trigger or taking those drugs or whatever it is their source is. You got to keep them talking. And I know there's a better way. I've lived
There
it.
is, there is. So,
So
guys, Bruce, just a moment. So, guys, I'll be again putting down Bruce's contact information down in the comments below. And if you know somebody who's going through some challenging moments in their life and did not know where to turn to, check it out. Just maybe reach out to Bruce. As he mentions, he may not have all the answers, but he could direct you to people who could help you further. Which comes to the point is that in my last episode, I had spoken one statement is that from our deepest of pain comes, or deepest of wound comes our deepest of purposes. For you, it had to be on that day in the cemetery on Jan 23rd, 2023, wherein you experienced that upheaval. So when we talk in that way, Bruce, is that so a question which comes up is that there may be some people who may not, maybe even they must have not reached that point of stage. But for you, as you mentioned, there might be like for 30 years, you were in a denial, even though you knew it was playing in your head. So for those people, just be mindful of the time. If what could be few suggestions that you could, because I'm not asking for advice, because advice doesn't really stick. You cannot, it's not like throwing the spaghetti on the wall and seeing whether it's sticking or not. But suggestions, what do you suggest those people do if they are plagued by these thoughts and they are in a self-denial?
yeah. Well, of course, I give my number out as an alternative to 988, which is a toll-free number in the United States that is staffed 24 hours a day. It's a free call. It's trained by professional people who can handle crisis calls like suicide. You don't have to be suicidal to talk to them. If you just want to have a conversation because you're stressed out and maybe you think headed towards suicide, call 988. I do spot checks on those people 3 times a month at random. I tell those people when I call them, and I call them all hours of the day and night, if you get a legitimate call, dump mine and take that call. I tell them, I said, guys, I'm just doing, I'm holding you all accountable because I refer a lot of people to you all. And I want to make sure when I refer people to you all that you all are doing your job and you can help. I said, don't take offense. This is life and death situations. I've been there. And I talked to them for a while, kind of interview them, gauge their expertise, their qualifications, etc.
Mhm.
And the 988 is staffed by good people, I will say.
Okay.
So I tell people, we call 988. If you're really in a serious crisis, go to the emergency room. Be honest with people. If you're not quite at a crisis stage, find somebody that you can trust. You got to talk. You cannot keep it to yourself. If you keep it to yourself, isolate yourself from other people, you're only going to make it worse. Now, I've been there. When you're in that kind of frame of mind, you don't want to talk to anybody because you're in the process of beating yourself up. You have got to get a safety plan of being with somebody when those thoughts start entering your mind that maybe I'm better off dead. There was no doubt in my mind. I concluded I was better off dead. And you got to get before you get to that comfort level of decision making, and you're thinking about it. Call your closest friend who has good judgment and say, "Can we talk? Can you just keep this confidential?" And of course, you've got to find somebody you can trust. And there's risk even in talking with people that you trust. I get that. But you got to talk to somebody other than yourself. I got a bachelor's degree in sociology. a minor in psychology, a master in social work degree, and a law degree. I couldn't fix myself for almost 3/4 of a century. Couldn't do it. I was my own worst enemy. I was sabotaging myself. You've got to have someone else talk. You got to talk to somebody. That's number one. 988 is an option if you have nobody to talk to. And there are people that don't have anybody. I know that. Um, but you got to talk to somebody. The emergency room is a good choice of going in and just being honest and saying, I'm contemplating killing myself. And they will take steps to get you treated. But you've got to separate yourself from the crisis of the moment in terms of your decision. Because once you make that decision, it's very difficult to come back. So you got to know that before you get to that decision. You got to look after your own safety and take advantage of what I'm telling you is available. Mental health treatment works. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt in trying it. And maybe you've tried it before. Some people have. But here's the thing. I had to see different therapists. I had to go through different levels of medication and changes in my medication. But eventually it gets worked out. It takes a couple of months sometimes for the medication to get enough in your system to be functional. And not all medication works on the same person, but it will work if you give yourself enough time, if you talk to somebody, a professional, mental health professional, you will get help. And I will say this unequivocally. I know I have no doubts that God it exists. And I know that he established a path forward for human beings to navigate all the turmoil they're going to face in life, some of us more than others. Bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people. It's above my pay grade to figure out why all that is. It's just life. And life can be very lifey. But I do believe that an evolving faith in the Lord and understanding the essential core values that Jesus advanced, talked about, those core values, if everybody embraced those values of looking after one another, of treating your neighbor as you wanted to be treated yourself, following the golden rule, all those things, if people did all of that, number one, I'd be out of a job as a lawyer because they wouldn't need lawyers. If everybody treated one another with courtesy and respect and were kind, I'd be out of a job. So I believe without question that following the Lord's direction, coupled with mental health, is a path forward to having a quality of life that I will tell you, as a matter of fact, I never imagined to exist. No one could have convinced me at all of the quality of life. The last 2 years of my life, and I'm 75 years old, have been the best 2 years of my life. I'm thinking more clearly than ever, functioning better as a human being and as a lawyer than at any prior point in my life. I am filled with gratitude. And I want people to know what is available, that they can be helped. I don't want anybody to suffer like I did. I don't think any reasonable person would want that someone else to suffer the way I experienced. And they don't have to, is the thing. They don't have to. If you talk to somebody, but you got to talk. You got to go to the emergency room if it's a crisis. You got to call 988 if you need to talk to somebody immediately 24 hours a day. And if you just want to talk to some hillbilly from Kentucky, 859-229-3436.
Fantastic. So Bruce, so guys, I know this podcast is going to be a global relay. There might be people who may not have 988 in your country, but then find out what is a crisis line. And as Bruce mentioned, and I always say is that we all are angels or humans with broken wings. When we hold another, that's when we start flying higher. So if you know somebody who you believe, like Bruce, he had a career, a white collared, an amazing career. He had the educational credentials behind him. He had everything going. He had a family. He had a great house. Everything was great. On paper, it looked. But mentally, if there was something else which was happening. So if you know somebody, or even if you are feeling a tug of war within your mind. Pause. There is help available. And do know that life is for living. There are people who have come from, who have risen from their ashes, and they have shown that there is a purpose. If it's not for your own self, maybe make a life for better for others, but continue to live and show that you can be an example, like how Bruce has been showing. 73 years of his life, he never realized where he felt it was all great. But what he mentioned is that the last 2 years showed him a different image about his own self. The gratitude that he's filled with because he's living. You all don't have to go through that. You all do not have to go through that hellhole. Or if people who are going through it, they do not have to go through that. Live and let live. Life is for living. Make it a reality. Bruce, with this, I would like to conclude our session today. And guys, I would say, talk again, as Bruce mentioned, is that if you're in crisis, dial 988. Or if you'd like to have a private or no judgment conversation with someone who's found that there is many better options, please contact Bruce. He does not put any charges to it. And he says he's not a therapist also, but he has been through what that hellhole is, and he listens very well. So I tell the number again: 859-229-3436, or on email bruce@simpsonlaw.com. I'll be putting it again in the comments. And know that you're not alone and you can be helped. So Bruce, thank you, my friend, for this
Thank you, Thomas.
amazing.
Thank you for having me.